In the medieval era, philosophy was employed by Christian thinkers like Aquinas to provide intellectual and metaphysical foundation for revealed religion. Thus, the medieval era provided a prolonged contact between philosophy and religion to the extent that the earliest modern philosophers met both as one and made a painstaking effort to separate them. Renaissance means rebirth or revival of learning. Hitherto, the philosophies of Plato and Aristotle were given religious bent through the hands of Augustine and Aquinas. They were not even directly read, but taught by Muslim philosophers. Thus, with Renaissance, Greek manuscripts were brought from Athens to Rome, and philosophy was critically studied distinct from religion or theology. The revival of learning was facilitated by Johann Gutenberg's invention of the printing press, which made books portable, cheaper, movable, and available. It was also facilitated by the fact that at this time, philosophers do not just make commentaries on authorities like Plato and Aristotle, but make original formulation of their own thoughts and even write in their own native language. Pico della Mirandola. Philosophers before him believed that there is a natural hierarchy of things, e.g., rock, plants, animals, man, angels, God. And the purpose of a thing is defined in relation to where it resides on this scale. But Pico does not believe that man's place on the scale is a fixed one. For him, God had filled all the points along the scale with other creatures before creating man. When he eventually created man, he gave him the freedom to choose his spot on the scale. Thus, man can either degenerate to the nature of lower animals or advance to the divine nature of angels, probably through abstinence and contemplation. Hence, for Pico, what makes man special is his freedom to choose his destiny. Niccolò Machiavelli. His political philosophy was influenced by the social-political situation of his time. His two books, The Discourses and The Prince. The Discourses approves a republican government. The Prince advocates for an absolute monarch. For him, a republican or self-government is more desirable. But for a corrupt society, what is required is a strong government. In The Prince, Machiavelli advises that the ruler should develop the art of deception and do anything necessary for political survival. He envisioned a double standard of behavior. That is, whereas the ruler is to be free to act as the occasion demands, the ruled are to adhere to Christian ethics. Martin Luther. He believed that the papal authority in granting indulgence by sale was being abused. After a long diplomatic protest against it, he led the German churches to sever from the Roman Catholic hierarchy. This marked the birth of the Protestant churches. Luther agreed with Ocklam that reason unaided by faith and grace cannot discover God. Reason is finite, faith is infinite. Thus, things impossible to reason are possible to faith. Based on Romans 1:17, the just shall live by faith. Luther argued that a Christian has in his faith all that he needs and needs no works to justify him. On politics, Luther admonishes that the individuals must obey the ruler no matter the perverseness of his commands. Desiderius Erasmus. Erasmus believes that the ideas of the great classical writers are in basic harmony with the gospel of Jesus, e.g., the similarity between Plato's teachings and those of Jesus Christ. Whereas, in contrast, he found a great departure between the teachings of Christ and the opulence and arrogance of the papal court. His main complaint was that the main point of religion is lost, while emphasis is being placed on trivial details. For him, true religion is a matter of the heart, not of the head. Thus, in his book, Praise of Follies, he valued the folly of simple faith more than the hair-splitting logic of scholastic theologians. This point was reinforced by Pascal, who said, "The heart has reasons which the reason does not know." Michel de Montaigne. For Montaigne, skepticism is a liberating force which frees one from intellectual confinement to a particular rigid set of ideas. There is no more likelihood that this is true than that is true. We should never make any permanent commitment to any doctrines, but instead assume a perpetual attitude of inquiry. He believes that an attitude of constructive skepticism could help prevent fanaticism, dogmatism, and their concomitant social ills. For him, to be a human is to consciously weigh alternatives and control one's behavior through an act of judgment. Blaise Pascal. His famous statement is, "The heart has reasons which the reason does not understand." Thus, like Plato, Pascal puts emotion and intuition above logical reasoning. Hence, for him, the guide to the truth is the heart. He was convinced that certain basic propositions in our thinking cannot be demonstrated. Rather, we arrive at them through some special insight. Francis Bacon. He detests the traditional learning method of the Middle Ages, when learning meant reading ancient texts, quoting ancient authorities like Plato and Aristotle, and having good command of language and style. For him, the traditional learning was inadequate because it mixed science up with superstitions, unguided speculations, and theology. Thus, he advocates that all the knowledge of the past should be wiped off for a fresh start. And the modern thinkers should break away from the slavish attachment to the past and the lingering influence of Aristotle. Thus, instead of the deductive method of Aristotle, Bacon proposed the inductive method. Thomas Hobbes. Hobbes is popular for his political philosophy, in which he speculates how civil society emerged from the state of nature. In the state of nature, there is survival of the fittest and right of all to all. That is, each person is free to possess, use, and enjoy all that he can. And there is an anarchic war of all against all. However, Hobbes argued that even in the state of nature, natural law exists. Natural law for Hobbes is a precept or general rule knowable by simple reason. The first law is seek peace and follow it. The second is be willing to give up your hostile rights towards others if they are willing to give up theirs towards you. Whereas these laws exist in the human rationality, they are not enforced. It is the need to enforce them that brought about the social contract. Social contract is a mutual relinquishing of the right to self-government to a central body called the sovereign, who hence assumes an absolute and irrevocable right to govern. Law begins with the advent of the sovereign, since it is by him that the law is enforced, and it is only by enforcement that the law fulfills its essence.